This is macOS Ken.
Complaints around iPhone 15 and heat. Another day of little updates from Apple. And a look at Apple and India. It is Wednesday, the 27th of September, 2023. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from macOS Ken. Brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by BetterHelp. Online therapy. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/macOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Is your iPhone 15 Pro like a late 80s Buster Poindexter song? Feeling hot, hot, hot? If so, you are not alone, which was a mid-90s hit for Michael Jackson. Probably going to stop that now. iLounge has seen lots of complaints online about, let's go ahead and say the issue, for now anyway. They're complaints like, my iPhone 15 gets too hot and it's quite annoying. It's concerning how hot my iPhone 15 gets during normal use. I've had issues with my iPhone 15 getting really hot, and it worries me. How big a thing is this? Big enough that TF International analyst Ming-Chi has addressed it. He hit Medium Tuesday saying, "Don't blame the processor." Quoting his post, "My survey indicates that the iPhone 15 Pro series overheating issues are not related to TSMC's advanced 3nm node. The primary cause is more likely the compromises made in the thermal system design to achieve a lighter weight, such as the reduced heat dissipation area and the use of a titanium frame, which negatively impacts thermal efficiency." He goes on to say it's expected that Apple will address this through software updates, but improvements may be limited unless Apple lowers processor performance. If Apple does not properly address this issue, it could negatively impact shipments over the product lifecycle of the iPhone 15 Pro series. Okay, maybe. But when I told my special lady friend about this story, her immediate response was, "Didn't it just come out?" She was thinking what I was thinking, that phones of all stripes get hot for a day or two when you first set them up. It's like what we talked about last week with the battery drain after updating to iOS 17. Going a tiny bit further, with waits for iPhones stretching for weeks, it's possible that hundreds or thousands of people a day are getting a new iPhone, setting up a new iPhone, noticing that iPhone getting hot, and hitting Twitter or Blue Sky or Threads. Hitting Twitter or Blue Sky saying things like, "The heat coming from my iPhone 15 is uncomfortable," or "I've heard others complaining about the iPhone 15 overheating as well." To be clear, this does not seem to be happening to everyone. While a piece from AppleInsider notes some complaints, it also says not everyone feels the burn, and points out that in nearly every case the temperatures are still within spec. That site also had an editor who had some issues with heating over the weekend, then saw those issues subside. Still, if you, like the random posters, are worried about the heat coming off your communicator, iLounge has a few suggestions. Starting with, turn on auto brightness. This setting will adjust the screen brightness depending on the amount of light around you, so you won't have to worry about your phone getting too hot or using up the battery too fast. iLounge says you might try turning off Bluetooth when not in use. Closing apps that use location services such as Safari and navigation apps might help reduce overheating according to the piece. The site thinks turning off Wi-Fi and AirDrop might help. And if your iPhone's in a case, maybe take it out of the case. Or you could wait. See whether it shakes out on its own, or Apple issues a super cool software update. Speaking of software updates, remember the iOS 17.0.2 update that I thought was just for iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max, but turned out to be for every model in the iPhone 15 line? Well, now it's just for every iPhone. AppleInsider posted a note Tuesday saying Apple had released iOS 17.0.2 for every phone that can take it, though they didn't stop there. The company also released iPadOS 17.0.2 and watchOS 10.0.2. For iPhone and iPad, nothing scary to report. According to AppleInsider, the updates don't have any listed CVE entries, but do address a bug related to initial device setup. The update text states that it fixes an issue that may prevent transferring data directly from another iPhone or iPad during setup. All the note says for the Watch release is that it addresses security updates and bug fixes for Apple Watch Series 9 and Apple Watch Ultra 2. Like the original iOS 17.0.2 release, the watchOS update may be for the latest Apple Watch models only. The Watch app on my iPhone indicates that my Series 7 Apple Watch is up to date with watchOS 10.0.1. watchOS 10 seems to have a weather issue in the works. A piece from 9to5Mac says a bug present in both the original watchOS 10 release and watchOS 10.0.1 is leaving weather complications blank for some users. According to the report, the issue occurs on watch faces with complications set for data from the weather app. Instead of displaying weather data as expected, the complications are blank and show no data. If you tap on the complication, the weather app will open and present data without issue. It's not an issue for everyone. For example, take me. Please. I keep my watch on a 24-hour clock, what some call military time. It's a holdover from when I used to have to fill in transmitter logs for some radio stations where I worked. I bring that up because that is part of the fix suggested by 9to5Mac. That site has users suggesting that people with weather complications should toggle their watch between the 12-hour and 24-hour time formats to fix the issue. The report says flip the switch, wait a few seconds, then flip it back, wait a few more seconds, and the weather data should reappear on the Apple Watch. Kind of a pain for a couple of reasons. First, you have to actually go into the Watch app to flip that switch. Apple doesn't let users toggle between 12 and 24-hour clocks on the watch itself. And second, 9to5Mac says the fix is only temporary. The site expects a permanent fix in a future software update, and for some people the future may be now. Doing one last pass before posting, I came across a piece from Mac Rumors that said watchOS 10.0.2 actually fixes the weather complication for Apple Watch Series 9 and Apple Watch Ultra 2. Of course, they're not the only ones having the problem, but I don't know, whatever. From updates to issues to updates again. A piece from AppleInsider says Apple on Tuesday released Studio Display Firmware 17, released in lockstep with macOS Sonoma, which also hit yesterday. The report says the Studio Display update brings support for zoom, recenter, and manual framing of the camera built into the screen. The update also includes minor stability improvements, according to the report. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, BetterHelp. Online therapy. Is it your thoughts that won't let you go, or you that can't let them go? I've sometimes said I can't shake certain thoughts. Not sure whether they're chasing me and I can't get free, or I just can't leave them alone. If something's on your mind, like standing on it, crushing it, keeping you from being productive or being able to sleep, you might do well to talk with someone, like a counselor with BetterHelp. The whole thing happens online. Finding a therapist, talking to a therapist. They make getting started easier than going to a therapist has ever been. Therapy may help you figure out why a thing that shouldn't bother you does, or how to cope with the feelings you have around that thing. Maybe it's something traumatic, or maybe it's something small that just keeps niggling? The thoughts are yours. The solution is out there. Therapy can help you find it. Get a break from your thoughts with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/macOSKen today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/macOSKen. BetterHelp.com/macOSKen. Apple's fix for France is still on the way. A couple of weeks back, we heard word of a problem with iPhone 12 in France. All of a sudden, the 3-year-old phone was said to exceed European-specific absorption rate limits. Authorities said Apple could probably fix the issue with a software update, something Apple said it would deliver. Now a piece from 9 to 5 Mac says Apple has turned the planned software update over to French authorities for review. No word on how long that will take, nor on when it'll be out to the masses, but, don't worry. It hasn't killed you yet. More news on the iPhone factory in India that was closed due to a fire. A piece from AppleInsider says it was closed earlier than we had heard. It is still closed, and it may be for the rest of the week. I told you yesterday of a report that indicated that an iPhone plant run by Pegatron in Tamil Nadu had closed Monday because of the aforementioned fire. The AppleInsider piece says Pegatron halted production on Sunday following the fire incident. No injuries according to the report, and no financial or operational impact for Pegatron, as had been stated before. As for getting going again, that seems to be a day-to-day thing. According to AppleInsider, 4 sources aware of the situation told Reuters that shifts may not happen on Wednesday. Damage at the plant was being repaired and could potentially lead to a week-long shutdown. Hey, remember that huge tax India was set to impose on computers made outside the country and sold there? That's been pushed into 2024. In early August, a piece from TechCrunch says India restricted import of laptops, servers, and many other consumer electronic devices effective immediately, saying it would impose a license permit for imports in a move that analysts say appeared to be aimed at boosting the local manufacturing efforts. That news jarred just about everyone, and so India said, "Too soon?" A couple of days later, another report from TechCrunch said regulators had pushed the implementation of the new import rule to the 31st of October. Now a piece from Apple MOSK says it has been pushed again for at least a year this time. As the piece describes it, computer makers such as Samsung, HP, Dell, and Apple will still need to get registration certificates for imports, though more time should make that more easily doable. Of course, if India's goal is to get those manufacturers to make stuff in India, extending the deadline should make that easier too. And finally today, remember that creepy sounding movie Fingernails coming from Apple TV Plus? It doesn't look nearly as creepy as it sounds. The Cupertino streamer issued a press release Tuesday, outing a trailer and announcing release dates. It really does sound creepy. A description from AppleInsider earlier this year said the film revolves around Anna, as she works for an institute that utilizes a machine that can determine whether or not 2 people are actually in love. To do that, it will study the makeup of a subject's fingernail by ripping it off. The latest description softens that a bit, saying Anna and Ryan have found true love. It's been proven by a controversial new technology. There's just one problem. Anna still isn't sure. Then she takes a position at a love testing institute and meets Amir. The trailer gives it a late 90s, early 2000s feel. Think Eternal Sunshine or Being John Malkovich, but dial back the absurdity. I mean, despite the fingernail thing. It's got a cast that's cool as cats, including Jesse Buckley, Riz Ahmed, Jeremy Allen White, and Luke Wilson. The trailer is up on YouTube now. Fingernails hits New York and LA on Friday, the 27th of October. It'll hit a few more theaters and Apple TV Plus 1 week later on Friday, the 3rd of November. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by BetterHelp. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/macOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media. Online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.